New Thought Media Network and the Universal Joy Center are proud to bring you The Joy Show. One voice, one story, infinite inspiration. Join your host Barbara Jean every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Tune in live or watch anytime on youtube.com/@UJOYC. The Joy Show with Barbara Jean. The perfect way to get inspired on Friday afternoons. Only on New Thought Media Network. And please like, share, and subscribe. And now, let's join Barbara Jean on The Joy Show.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to The Joy Show. I'm Barbara Jean, your host, and my pronouns are she, they. And this afternoon, I'm doing something a little bit different. So strap yourself in. This should be a great hour. But let's start with the land acknowledgement. We'll take a moment to connect with the land that we're standing on. Build a relationship with Mother Earth. Mother Earth provides for all our relations, no matter where our family originates from. We all have a relationship and a responsibility to this land. And as we come together today, we acknowledge that we work, live, and play on this land, and that this territory consists of ceded land as well as unceded land that continues to be contested. Canada, and the United States for that matter, is home to many Indigenous, diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So we recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Miigwech. Thank you. Well, today, it's a new year, it's a new beginning, it's a new possibility. So I'm sitting here going, what do we create today? Well, today what I wanted to talk to you about is what I know for sure. Yes, no guest today. I'm your guest. And you can put questions and comments in the chat, and I will do my best to acknowledge those and answer those as we go along. So the Joy Show, I normally interview someone on the show, but today I thought I would talk about the things that I've learned and what I know as a result of my 30 years in this teaching. So, what I know for sure. So, instead of reaching, all people, what I'm hoping to do today is just to speak from my own personal truth. And it's more just a sharing of here's what life could look like, here's some tools we could use to make it that way. So, what do I know for sure? It's interesting the way we pretend. I mean, we've all done it. We all do it. We're getting ready for that very first date. We've been hanging out last 3 months in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and we've combed our hair but done little else. And then we get a date. So we start with the waxing and the tweezing and the painting up and the doing of the hair and go out and buy a new outfit. Or why are we doing all this? We're doing it because we want to make a good first impression. We want to have the person see us in a certain way. And so we do all this fancy stuff. Now, of course, once we've been together 20, 30 years, all that fancy stuff seems to go by the wayside. And instead, we hang out together in a more honest and authentic way of simply being ourselves and being comfortable in our own skin. So what I know for sure is that the pretending is like putting up a brick wall between me and the other person. You see, they're not meeting me. And it's not to say I have to go out in sweatpants. That's not the point. The point is all the things we do to try to be acceptable, right? The things we say, the way we talk, the stories we tell, how much we choose to drink when we're out on a date, or what we choose to eat. Have you ever gone out on a date and you're at this fabulous restaurant, but you want to seem really demure or something, and so you order a small salad? Oh, well, that's all I need. No, it's not. It's not even all you want. But for some reason, there's this idea that if I eat a really small portion, then people will like me more. I have no idea about that one. It's something I've never done. I go out for dinner, I'm going to go out for dinner and eat whatever's being offered. But if we begin to look at how we show up in the world, when we're putting on a mask, which I think is what happens when we pretend or try to be what the other person would want us to be, we're doing a real huge disservice to ourselves. And more importantly, we're doing a disservice to humanity, period. Because we've sort of created this model that who I am is not enough, who I am is not good enough. Pardon me. And so, who I am, I better change that in order to be acceptable. So, where did this messaging come from? Well, I venture to say it came out of our childhood. You know, we wanted to hang with our best friend when we were 3 years old, and mom said, no, it's nap time. And we threw a tantrum. That mom, oh man, so mean. But somehow that triggered something in us that has kept going through all the years and is probably buried quite deeply down within us, so we don't even recognize why it is we live the way we do. But we have the ability to change that. And that's the most powerful thing in this teaching is that regardless of what's happened in the past, it does not define our now moment. And it sure doesn't define us moving forward. So, what I know for sure is everything changes, nothing stays the same, and that this journey called life and living has no destination. That's what I know for sure. So, knowing that, think about, what has softened you? I'm going to just share what softened me. Pardon me. Oh, why my throat is giving me trouble. The things that have softened me, probably my children and my grandchildren. There's something about when a child is born and, we look into their face for that first time. There's an overwhelming feeling of love and acceptance. And we look at this wee baby and it's like sunshine on our face. It's so beautiful. And I think having children, having pets, having pets that will cuddle up beside you when you're having a a rough moment or whatever, there's something about that that softens our energy. And the more that we can soften it, the easier it is for people to relate to us. It's easier for them to want to spend time with us because we don't have a rough edge. And it's not to say we don't want to tell the truth quickly. It's not to say that we don't want to, be true to ourselves, but we can do it in a way that is soft and compassionate rather than harsh and demanding. Okay. So we just look at what softens us. And I want to invite you to, as you go through your week, when something comes up and you're feeling like you're ready to just take on the world with your fists, just take a pause for a moment. And in that moment, go, as I soften my energy, as I soften my ideas, how do I present what's coming to me in a way that can be received? And so maybe I present it a little bit differently. I present it with a loving, caring heart and mind so that what I'm giving, they now have a choice, use it or don't use it. A friend of mine years ago was giving another one of our friends some advice. And the friend who was receiving the advice in her mind was thinking, wow, you might want to use this. And she no sooner had that thought. And the person who was sharing goes, take my advice. I'm not using it. I laughed so hard when I heard that. And I thought, how often do we do that? We spout all kinds of ideas, thoughts, here, take it, when in fact we're not even using it ourselves. So We want to begin to use these tools and techniques. We want to be able to move forward with what we're doing so that we create something that is harmonious and positive, something that is uplifting, and something that is dynamic, right? So let's think about what we can do to soften our energy, not to change it, not to alter it, not to show up differently, but just to present in a way that is easier for other people to hear. And that softening can do that. The other thing I was thinking about as I was coming up with the ideas for today was what still challenges you? And, what still challenges me? And so as I sit with that question, there's lots of things in the world that I find a little bit challenging at the moment. I mean, the state of affairs in the Middle East, the state of affairs in the US, the state of affairs in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, the state of affairs in our world could be looked at as kind of rough because it is. And here's the good news. The good news is that because there's one universe and everything that's happening is happening inside that one thing, that means that you're in it, I'm in it, that we're all a part of it. And because we're all a part of it, we all impact it in the very same way, and that is through our thinking. Goodness gracious. It is our thinking that makes it so. So if I'm sitting in a cafe and I notice, someone with a small child, and maybe that child is running around amongst the tables and, being a little Dickens like little kids can be. Now I have a choice, numerous choices, frankly, as does everybody else in the restaurant. We can call the mother out and say, "Excuse me, get a handle on your kid. They're disrupting the rest of us." Or we can look at the child and talk to the child. I remember years ago being in a being in a restaurant with my grandchildren, my eldest daughter, and my husband hadn't quite joined us yet. And so we were sitting there, and my youngest granddaughter, the kids were given these wands, right? Fairy wands, because we had been at a medieval festival. So she's got her fairy wand. And she's screaming and yelling and abracadabra. And most of the people in the restaurant, it's a hotel restaurant, and many of them were seniors. And I could just imagine what they were thinking as this child is yelling on the top of her lungs. And so Arlene and I were both trying to, contain it a little bit. Oh, let's speak with a soft voice or whatever. She'd been a mom for a few years. I'd been mom for many, many years. So in walks my husband, who had never been a parent. He comes in and sits down, and he looks over at Jess and he says, "Did you know that the wand only works if you whisper?" Genius, pure genius. He had never had children, had never spent a ton of time with them, unlike Arlene and I. And yet somehow intuitively knew the correct response to what was going on in order to get the desired result that he wanted. Now, it's funny, when I think about myself as a parent, all those years trying to get my kids to do things and going about it all the wrong way, telling them what to do and how to do it. And yeah, I got some comments from them over the years. But what's interesting is we learn, or we can learn, and it's hopeful that we will. So we want to take a look at whatever challenges us, and then take a look and go, what could I do different in order to experience this in a new way? That's what we want to start doing. So what I know for sure is that when I take the time to do that, answers come. And some of them quite surprising. It's like, wow, I never thought about that. So Jones just put in the chat, when someone says something that they are probably right about, but I don't agree, how do I navigate that? That's a great question because it happens all the time, doesn't it? Especially in relationships, our spouse will say something or our kids will say something, and it's like, but I don't agree with you. One of the things that I learned a long time ago was that I'd rather be right. I'd rather be right than happy used to be how I was. Now I'd rather be happy than right. So what I'll do is I will comment like, wow, thank you for sharing that. Or what an interesting perspective. Mine's a little different, but yours is very interesting. You see, we can turn around and sort of create harmony in the conversation, and then maybe create space for us to share our thought on it or our opinion, or we can go, no, that's wrong. Here's the right way. And what do we get then? Immediate pushback, right? So in this moment, what we really want to do is take the time to just go, wow, thank you for sharing that. Tell me more. Yeah, tell me more. I remember when I first went into ministry a zillion years ago, and I remember somebody, coming in and telling me all the things I was doing wrong, all the things I was doing wrong, all the ways that I was destroying their life. And, I would have felt pretty bad about that, but I kept asking the question, wow, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Wow, that's very courageous. I'm really glad you did. Tell me more about that. And the conversation went on and on for a while. And then at one point, the person went, oh, this isn't about you. It's about me. And I went, oh, how so? And let them. They found their way to the answer they were seeking without me ever having to say, you're wrong. That's not true. I didn't. It's a good thing to remember that defense is offense. So when somebody is saying something to us and we disagree and we let them know that right away, basically we've moved into the offense position where we're trying to control the dynamic. But if we have nothing to control, we can breathe into it and we can just let it unfold and see where it goes. And at some point in time, depending on the individual, we might have to cap the conversation. Well, you know what? Let's just agree to disagree and leave it at that. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker. We don't have to create a war over it, but we can sit back. And especially when, like you said here, Jones, that when somebody says something where they're probably right, but you don't want them to be right, kind of thing. What about if you know for a fact they are wrong? Can you still do the process that I suggested? That's where I found it to be incredibly valuable, is just to sit back and go, wow, what an interesting perspective. Mine is a little bit different if you want to hear it. And if they go, yeah, that'd be great, then I share mine. They go, oh, no, that can't be. Okay, well, thank you. This is great to be able to have this conversation. There's a musician in the US. I believe his name is Daryl Jones, I think. Anyway, he's easy to find on YouTube. He did a TED Talk about a black man attending KKK rallies. Yeah, that got my attention when I saw it. But here's what's cool is he didn't understand racism. He didn't know anything much about that. And, when he was about 9 or 10 years old, he had that first experience of being treated poorly, like really poorly, because of his skin color. But instead of getting angry and yelling at people and doing whatever, he got curious and he started reading all kinds of material. What KKK was saying, what, different groups were saying, what, Martin Luther King Jr. would say. He's just reading and reading and reading, trying to gather enough information for this to make sense to him. And at one point in time, he says to his assistant, he said, I want you to book me a one-on-one interview with the head of the KKK in our region, but don't tell him I'm black. So she does. She books everything. And they show up at the meeting place, which was a motel, and the head of the KKK comes in with his bodyguard, and he's there with his assistant. and they sit down and have a conversation. And they talk about their different points of view. And when they leave that conversation, they're both still of their own mind, but it was a peaceful, deliberate conversation. So these meetings go on and on and on and on for years, and they become friends. Look up the YouTube video because I'll tell you, there's something there that suggests to us the way that we handle conflict, the way that we show up in the world does impact how things unfold. And yeah, you're right, Jones. If we allow peace to exist, then it does. I just need to be what it is I say I want to experience in the world. So that's where we're at now and most days is how do we do that and what is challenging us? And there's a lot of things right now challenging us. I've had people come up to me going, "I don't understand this non-binary thing. Why can't we go back to the way it was?" Well, the way it was, but what is now is. And so we have to kind of look at what is and find a way for us to be with it without making somebody else bad and wrong. And that's where I like Jones's comment about peace. If I'm peaceful in it, then I can ask questions. Oh, well, tell me about that. I don't understand. So tell me about this. And that can go for a lot of different things where we enter a conversation about something rather than turning around going, no, my way is the right way. And I think that's how wars are started. My way is the right way, your way is the wrong way. And so follow my way and all will be well. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. So we're journeying along. And what I know to be true is that I have within me the ability to choose. Mm. I can choose to be right. I can choose to be happy. Just a choice. And I know it doesn't feel that way sometimes, but it is still the truth. It is a choice. And the choices that we make moment by moment define where we end up, how we end up, what goes on in our lives. When we're angry and miserable all the time, which is what I used to be, probably notice don't have a lot of friends. The ones you do have are angry and miserable too. And life feels particularly hard. And no, God's not mad at you. That's another word that we should redefine. Because sometimes when we think about the idea of God or spirit, we're thinking of, some guy up there who's passing judgment on all of us down here. But what if it's just energy? What if it isn't a person? What if it's a force that we all live, move, and have our being inside of? So if that's true and I'm one with this power, then I have within me the ability to use it. Yes. And if I have the ability to use it, I can use it any way I want. Free will. So I can destroy with it, I can create with it. I can inspire or I can distress. I can love, I can fear. Just choices. So as we're journeying along, I invite you to think about, um, what would my life be like if I really loved myself? Yeah, self-love, self-love. What if I loved me? What if I looked at every mistake I ever made and went, wow, check you out. Look what you've learned. What if I looked at, where I am right now with curiosity and then using my imagination, thought about what I could create, where I could go, what could be different? You see, we're together in this. There's no separation. We're together in this. I love that, Austin. And how would I know when to catch myself just being tolerant of abuse or something like holding a grudge and calling it peace? Yeah, if you're holding a grudge, there ain't no peace there. And then somebody else mentioned The softening, do I have to, force that into my state? No. The softening is fascinating because I remember a friend of mine talking about how, she was struggling with something and having this really bad day and like nothing could change it. And then one of her grandchildren walked in and immediately she was like, "Oh, honey," the softening happened. See, softening is organic. It just happens in the moment when something interrupts whatever. So, you're walking through a beautiful garden and maybe you've been a little distracted and all of a sudden you see a little bunny hopping across your path and you go, "Oh, so cute." The softening has happened. So, um, it can occur that way for sure. But how do I know that I'm not accepting abuse or whatever, and that I'm not holding a grudge? Well, number one, if you're holding a grudge, you'll know because the minute you see the person, hear their name or whatever, there'll be a feeling inside of you that is not peaceful. A feeling of dread, I don't wanna see them, I wanna avoid them, or, let me at them. Like, it's hard to say what those emotions would be, but we would know there's something there. Somebody else mentions their name, and right away we're like, "Ooh, don't trust that person," right? We get it in our head that probably something there is, definitely a problem. So we wanna take the time to go, would I and I had to do this in the beginning because I treated myself pretty poorly, and then I had people around me who treated me even more poorly, and so I had to kind of reconcile, how do I acknowledge or know the difference? Or how do I change it? And what I realized is there's only one way to change it, and that was for me to fall in love with me, to accept me as I am, not how I think people want me to be, but how I really am. And I'm outspoken, I'm loud, I, can be very serious and driven. I can be incredibly joyful and happy and silly. I can be all those things, but I can also be a bitch, although a lot less of that is happening than it used to. That used to be my way. If I could be nasty enough, I'm gonna get my way kind of thing. Never worked, never worked. I don't know why I thought it would, but it was coming to terms with me and who I am. You see, we get these messages as children and stuff, that's "You're a bad girl. Don't do that. That's terrible." And it starts to build up, but from a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old perspective, we just see ourselves as disappointing these powers around us, right? Our parents are seen more as God than they are, human beings, because what I know about my parents is they could see all, they knew all, and they were everywhere present, at least when I did something bad. So they represented that model that we had been fed when we were younger. This is what God is, a guy in the sky passing judgment. So you better be good. Or is that Santa Claus? One and the same, I think. But when we come to understand that who I am, number one, I'm created in the image and likeness of the creator. Now, that doesn't mean the creator is 5'2" with blue hair. That would be me creating it in my image. And that's pretty much what humanity has done. What if we switch that and instead we come to realize I am a part of this incredible universe, a powerful universe, and within in me is that power. How am I going to use that? How am I going to move forward day by day to begin to live from that place of power rather than succumbing to the discontent that's all around us? It is so easy to do, isn't it? So easy. Somebody on the news says something, and right away we're just ready to put on our battle shoes and away we go. But the truth is that how we show up matters. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit in a minute. We're going to go to a quick little commercial break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about how we can shift the energy in our lives to create what it is we truly seek and desire. And how we do that is from the list of what I know to be true. I'll be back in just a minute. Be sure to stay tuned.
Please help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Home Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you.
And we're back. You're watching The Joy Show today, and we're doing a little different format in that we're, talking about the principles that I teach. And recently I was thinking about, how we make these changes happen in our life. And one is intention more than anything. When we desire to have our life show up differently, then it will. But one of the things I noticed, and this might be more of a Canadian thing than American, but one of the things I've noticed is religion is not as big a deal up here as it is down south of us. And what I realized is even using words like God can put up walls to certain people, minister, reverend, pastor, all these kind of words can bring up all kinds of different energy. And I was reading something in a book this week, A New Design for Living by Ernest Holmes. And in there, he was referred to as a spiritual philosopher. I love that. So I choose today to be a spiritual philosopher. We'll just drop all the other stuff. Spiritual philosopher, I love that name. Anyway, back to where we were. How do we make the change? How do we begin to, say no when we mean no and say yes when we mean yes, and just really get into life with joy? Remember, what I know to be true is there is no destination, right? We are experiencing moment by moment by moment by moment by moment, and there's only now. So I can be wishing and hoping all kinds of things, but that is not going to change anything. So how do I start making these changes? First is intention. When I notice that my life isn't working, which is what happened to me years ago when I first found this teaching, is my life was not working. In fact, I was about ready to get fired from my job. I worked at a daily newspaper in Calgary, and I was miserable. Not so much with the job, but with life itself. I really hated me. And when you really don't like yourself, it's amazing the stuff you do to further diminish your own worth. And it gets to a point where you actually believe all of what you're doing or how you're creating it. So I've been employed for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years at this point. I worked in the advertising department, and I get called into my boss's office for my annual review. Yay. And basically he told me, you either fix your attitude or get the hell out. And I was really shocked by that. I was always a hard worker, but my attitude really, really did stink. So I listened to him. I walked out of his office. I was devastated. One of the things I was taught as a young person and right up until then was you must work hard to earn a living. You must work hard to be of value to your employer. So my father had given me this work ethic that you must work hard. You show up every day, no matter how you're feeling. You put in your day's work. You get everything done. Stay late if you have to. Don't even worry about overtime. Just do what needs to be done, get it done. And I always did that. So the thought of being fired was like the worst possible thing that could happen to me. I cannot be fired. That just went against my grain. So when I left there, I thought, so what do I do? What do I do now? And a series of events unfolded that actually brought me into this new thought teaching. That is the Centers for Spiritual Living and some others. My center is called the Universal Joy Center. But the idea of coming into this awareness that I must do something different. I must do something different because getting fired, not an option. So I did a couple of things. The first thing I did was I signed up for a personal development workshop. I thought, let me try that. And I met the instructor who was leading it. I ended up taking a number of classes with him. I even started to promote his stuff, which gave me the opportunity to attend these things for free. And so this is what I was doing. And it was, how to be more positive, how to be more upbeat, how to, how to show up in a world that, wants to maybe pick on you sometimes, but how to be fully present. And so as I started doing this work, what I realized was at first it was very foreign to me and very uncomfortable. But I realized it was serving me and it was serving me really well. I got to the point, I worked in a building where there was about 1,000 employees. And as I would walk from my office to the coffee machine or whatever, I would see people that I didn't know them, but I recognized them to see them. And so I started commenting positive comments on everyone that I saw. It'd be like, oh, hey, so good to see you. You got your haircut. It looks fantastic. Or, wow, I love that dress. Or, your shoes are amazing. Man, you look good today. You have a fabulous smile. Keep smiling. And so I was doing stuff like this. And at first it felt a little bit forced because it was really uncomfortable for me. My comfort zone was anger, frustration, and being kind of a nasty person. That was my comfort zone. That's what I knew. That's what I recognized. That's what I was raised with. That was familiar. Not at all comfortable, but very familiar. And then as I started doing the opposite of that, funny thing happened. People I didn't know would talk to me. I got lots of smiles and thank yous. I got a lot more compliments than I ever used to get. The other thing I started doing was really looking at how I dressed and how I prepared myself physically, not so people would like me, but so that I felt comfortable in my skin. See, sometimes we dress for fashion, sometimes we dress for, our spouse or partner, sometimes we dress because our friend said it looked good. The most important thing is to dress for comfort. Something that looks good on you, on your body style, and is comfortable for you to wear. Because when we're comfortable, we show up better. All right? These are just simple little tools that, really they do what they do, right? So I start taking these personal development workshops. I start doing some things differently. I'm seeking, seeking, seeking. And a year passes and I get called back into the office for another review. I'm a little nervous this time, but I know I've done a lot of work. I go in and he's sitting across the desk from me and he's shaking his head going, if I didn't see it for myself, I wouldn't believe it was possible. I wouldn't believe it to be true. He said, I've heard of people doing what you've done, but I never, ever believed it until now. He said, how did you do this? Like it was a complete change. I became positive. I became excited about life and work, and everything started to change. Now, that didn't mean nothing ever went wrong. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I showed up differently and the world responded differently. And I think you can probably relate to that. So the journey that we're on is about really, finding it in our hearts to love ourselves, not where we think we want to be, but where we are right now with all the little mistakes we've made. And like, we have to begin somewhere. So when I came up with the title for this show, the reason I call it The Joy Show is joy being an acronym for just one you. You are unique. There is only one of you, not two, not four. I don't even care if you're a twin or a triplet. There's still only one of you. Your twin may have very similar features. They might even be identical. But I can assure you that your likes, your dislikes, your way you show up in the world, probably very different. So allow yourself to really, fall in love with you. Fall in love with you. So here's your assignment. Go stand in front of the mirror, naked if you're brave, and just look in the mirror and look directly into your own eyes and say, I love you. I love you. That feels good. I've asked numerous people to do this exercise, and I've had some who absolutely could not say those words, who would stand in front of the mirror in tears, unable to say 3 little words. That speaks volumes as to why life looks the way it does. It's important that we come to recognize that there are no mistakes. The way we were created is absolutely necessary and perfect for the current state of affairs in our world. We were created as a unique thread in the tapestry of life that is essential to creating the full picture. And if we can do that, if we can start to see ourselves as essential to the unfolding of the universe right now, if we can begin to see ourselves as part of the solution or part of the problem, we can then make a choice as to how we want to focus our attention, where we want to take it, what we want to do with it. You see, we have the ability to do, say, be whatever we want. And when we do things that are kind of in alignment with the universal flow, our life tends to move along much easier than when we're bumping up against it. Yeah, I've had, the cosmic sledgehammer pulled out a few times because I wouldn't listen. Ever have that happen? It's like something happens in your life and it's not great and you grumble and complain about it, and then something else similar happens and it's not great and you grumble and complain about that even more than the first time. And all of a sudden it seems like nothing's going right anywhere and all you're feeling is absolute misery moment by moment. Darn, now what? Time to interrupt it all. Time to interrupt it all. If we could take our thinking and give it something to focus on that would change how we feel about ourselves, that's the only thing we ever have to do. That's it. That's the only thing. Because the minute I can look in the mirror and go, I love you, and actually mean it and feel it, from there I make new choices. See, if I really love myself, I am not going to weigh my value against your opinion. Your opinion of me is your opinion of me, which means it has nothing to do with me, but it has to do with your perception of me, which may or may not be accurate. Does this make sense? Landing? And if it is, well, we could take it even further. If I love myself enough, then I have an overflow. And from that overflow, I can give. I can give. Right? And here's the funny thing about love. It's like you cannot outgive love. It doesn't matter how much of it you give away. There's plenty more where it came from. So the more you give, the more it shows up. The more you give, the more you experience of it. And I've had wonderful, fun experiences in the world because I will tell strangers that I love them. I know. Some people think that's a silly thing to do, but I personally think it's the right thing to do. And I've had a few experiences of those. One was really fun because I was in a Shoppers Drug Mart, which is kind of one of the main drugstores here up in Canada. So I'm at the drugstore and I'm actually looking for baking soda. Not a big thing to find in a drugstore, but it's a big store. It has grocery items, all kinds of things. So I'm looking for it, and the clerk tells me it's on a certain aisle. And so I'm looking along, and there's a gentleman in front of me also looking at the same shelf, and he's just bent down a little bit so I can't see around him to see if my item is there. So I go, "Oh, excuse me, I just want to see if what I'm looking for is right there where you are." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, what are you looking for?" I said, "Baking soda." He goes, "Me too." I went, "Aha, we were destined to meet." And so we start this little conversation. He hands me a box. He's got a box. And he goes, "This was great, running into you." And I went, "Yeah." I said, "I love you, man." He goes, "I love you too." We'd never seen each other before. We had no idea what our names were or anything else for that matter. But there was this really sweet exchange. And, we're going in opposite ways down the aisle. And at the end, he turns back. He goes, "I love you." And I went, "I love you too." And then off we go about our business. I've never seen him since. Some people might go, "Well, that was a really dumb thing to do." No, it wasn't. It was a heartfelt connection. The interesting thing is when we listen to our intuitive side, when we listen to that part of us that absolutely knows who we are, when we live from there, we are safe and secure. When we're coming from fear constantly, this is when a little worry might make more sense because that fear is creating something to match it. Okay. So we want to make sure that when we show up in a way that is authentic and honest to us. Doesn't matter what mom said, dad said, sister, brother, teachers, all of that is irrelevant. You are the only one who knows who you are. Yeah. I was starting a new company many years ago, and the agency I was working with for branding had said, call a bunch of people and interview them and ask them all these questions. And so I did that, and one of the people I called was a girlfriend of mine who, I had known well, at this point, I've known for 55 years. Yeah, it's been a while. Now, we don't see each other that often. We live in different cities, opposite sides of the country. So I remember, calling her up and saying, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, and I'd like to interview you. I've got a few questions that I'd love to have you answer if you would." And she's like, "Yeah, of course." And I asked what one quality was that, she knew for sure about me, and she said, "I trust you." Now, we'd known each other since we were 14, and when I was 14, I was a little bugger. Let's just put that clear. She said, "I trust you." She said, "I know that without a doubt, if I ever need anything, doesn't matter if I've seen you or not seen you in years, I could call you and you would be there." And I went, "Oh, wow. It's true." But I never thought about it from somebody else's perspective, that she just knew she could count on me no matter what, no matter when. That really touched my heart. I thought, wow, that's incredible. When we are looking at the life that we are living and we're spending time exploring what it is we desire in life, I want to remind you, you live, move, and have your being within the absolute. It is powerful. It is everywhere present. It is all knowing. If we tap into that understanding rather than I have all the answers, if we tap into that, we will get inspiration, ideas, and thoughts that will move us forward in life in a very different way. Choices. How do I show up? How do I show up when, you know, somebody borrows my car and bangs into something and puts a dent in it? How do I show up? Do I start yelling and screaming and how dare you do that? Does that change anything? No. Is it of value? Not really. Do you think the person needs to know they made a mistake? No, they already know that. You see, we spend a lot of time blaming and projecting, and all of it is coming from our fear that I'm not enough, or fear that I didn't get it right, or, you know, fear of being humiliated, or whatever it is. There's all sorts of stuff. So I would love for you to consider the possibility of creating a little banner that says courageous and put it on your bathroom mirror so that when you look in the mirror, you see that word and your face courageous. And because you're courageous, and because I am courageous, we stand up and we speak truth to stupid. We stand up and make our points known without diminishing someone else. We allow ourselves to, thank you, Rachel. We allow ourselves to really be present in life with everybody. You know, how I treat that person sleeping on the street in the dead of winter says a lot more about me than about them. It does, doesn't it? Do I care? Or do I go, oh, for God's sake, go find a place to live? What's my attitude? So the whole thing we're doing is finding a way to love ourselves enough that we can give love out. And the minute we start loving, a change occurs. And I'm just going to share a story, probably be the last short story I share, but it's about my brother, who's a couple of years younger than me. And he started to work for a company about 15 years ago that was in the oil and gas industry in Alberta. And so he decided, you know what? I'm going to bring love. That's what I'm going to bring to the table here. And so he went and started working there and immediately started telling all the guys and everybody else, I love you, man. You know, somebody would do something great. I love you, man. Now, at first they thought, what is wrong with this guy? But he didn't stop. He continued. He did it with management. Now, where he didn't do it, at least at first, was with the female employees who were employed in the office. I don't know that there was any women on the floor, but he didn't use it with them. And one day, he was saying, you know, hey, I love you, man, to one of the guys. And one of the women from the office, who he often joked around with, said, hey, what about me? And then it was like, okay, I can do this without, you know, somebody thinking I'm threatening or whatever. So he goes, I love you, man. Love you too. And it's like when we soften our edges, we go back to that softening. What is it we really want out of life? You know, my brother took a little bit of time off when dad died. And he had one of the young guys phone him up and go, we got to come back. There's no love here. We need the love brought back. The journey that we're on is not an independent one, although we are independent thinkers and we have the ability to create freely whatever it is we choose. But at the same time, we're in this together. And so when I look at an event and you know, I go, wow, that's the best thing ever. I have created a positive energy that helps to lift new ideas. And when I look at something and go, this sucks and I hate it and it's awful, well, number one, I've hit the ditch. You know, if you're ever wondering about heaven and hell, in that moment, I'm in hell. But in the moment, I change my perspective and realize, hey, we're all doing the best we can with what we know. All of a sudden, I'm in heaven. So they are not vacation destination points. They are simply states of consciousness that we get to experience right here, right now. There's just one you, unrepeatable, unrepeatable. My favorite. My favorite minister used to say that all the time. Unrepeatable. The Reverend Evan Reed. Unrepeatable. You are unrepeatable. The way you've been created is not only perfect, whole, and complete, but you are essential to the unfolding of the universe at this time. Yeah, you matter in a big, big, big way. So I want to invite you over the next week, and hopefully you come back again next week. But over the next week, I want you to think about the things you regret. Maybe just make a little note of it so you can just look at it and sit with it and go, the person I am today would not have done that. So why am I carrying it forward? Did I learn something from it? Yep. Have I repeated it? Yep. I did a few times before I caught on. It's decided I'd stop. We have complete and total control over what we think, how we think. And so we can change our thoughts. Ernest Holmes says, change your thinking, change your life. That might sound kind of simple. Simple, yes. Hard, hard to do, hard to accomplish, but yes, very, very simple overall. So, as we're coming up to the end here, I guess what I want to say in closing is remember who you really are and give up the masks. Just toss them away as you notice them going, oh, I'm doing it again. Oh, going to meet the mother-in-law. Let me put this mask on. And just shift it so that you're constantly getting rid of the things that actually prevent you from being seen and experienced with the rest of the world. I wanted to close with a quote out of The Science of Mind from Ernest Holmes. He said, "You are the center and circumference of my life, the beginningless and endless part of me, the eternal reality of me, the everlasting power within me, the eternal good working for me, the infinite love impelling me, the limitless peace and calm within me, the perfect life living through and in me, the joy of the soul and the light of the spirit illuminating me. God, Spirit, Universe, eternal and forever blessed. You are my whole being." And as you allow those words to settle, I bless you. I love you. I thank you for being here today. And please like, share, and subscribe. Send me a comment. My website is Universal Joy Center, is ujoyc.ca. Send me a comment. Email me, revbarbara@rogers.com. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Know that you are valuable, precious, and remarkable, and that without you, the world would be a very different place. I love you. See you next time. Bye for now.